Today on Locked On Red Wings, Max Bultman of The Athletic joins for a mid-season check-in.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the Daily JAWWJ News Radio podcast, while Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Scotty, we are very happy to be joined once again by our favorite and most frequent guest. Don't know how to say that word, apparently. Max Bultman of The Athletic, Detroit Red Wings beat writer. Max, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Great to see you guys. And should be an interesting show today, given where things have gotten to.
Right. I mean,
timing.
Was it good timing though, Scotty? Like we were talking about this before we started recording. Would the better of timing have been having Max on when the team was playing well?
I think there's an argument this is the best timing,
right.
To be honest. There's also an argument it's the worst, but I think there is an argument that it's the best timing, actually.
Yes. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least. Red Wings going through all kinds of injury woes. They finally look as if they get healthy, and then, as we all know, Husso goes down. Lyon goes down the game before that. Kostin goes down, and then very suddenly, your goaltending situation is very different. Kostin to the IR. Zarnik recalled. Michael Hutchinson signed to a one-year deal, league minimum $775,000 two-way deal. So, Max, I guess we're going to start there. The goaltending situation already wasn't great before the injuries. Now that your depth has been tested and eviscerated, where do we stand in terms of what this goaltending has to do to just, I guess, survive? And what's your take on the Michael Hutchinson signing?
Yeah. Okay, lot to unpack. So in terms of the goaltending situation, big picture, right? I actually think the toughest thing about the timing of this is that I think prior to, I guess he really wasn't very good in the first period against Anaheim, but the previous three outings before that were probably the best we've seen him over a 3-appearance stretch this season. And Alex Lyon has, I think, had up until the injury, pretty well asserted himself as the deserving number 2, if not borderline number 1 or true tandem mate there. So the toughest thing about this, you mentioned like the goaltending already wasn't great, and like from a team save percentage thing, that's absolutely true. I think the tragedy in this for the Red Wings is that it was just coming together. Like you might have finally had the bones of this kind of workable tandem. Husso's getting it into gear about a month after the birth of his kid. I think when you consider that factor, I kind of understand maybe that there could be some correlation there. Lions getting in gear. I thought it was coming together, and I think that's what makes these two injuries in, was it consecutive games? I think they were consecutive games. Yeah. So tough, because James Reimer had a nice start to the season, his first few appearances, but I have not been especially inspired, I guess I'd say, by his performance recently. It's been more limited usage recently, and I think that's been the correct choice. Now it's going to ramp up significantly, and the Red Wings have to hope that he can recapture what he was doing at the start of the year. He is the reason that they signed him. He is a very well-seasoned NHL goalie. And while I know, that he's getting toward the end of that career and whatnot, he is still a guy who has been able to carry a load. That's where you can get a little bit of confidence from him, is even fairly recently, he has been the kind of goalie that you can give 30, 40 plus games to in a season and expect to, kind of hold serve there. Last year, the save percentage dipped a good bit, but the year before that, at age 33, he played 48 games that had a 911 save percentage. Like you'll take that all day. Can he get back to that? I'm skeptical, but what they need is him to just get close to that 904 mark, which is the league average now, that's another thing that we could take this in a whole other conversation. League goaltending is on a big downward trend right now. There is, I think, a supply crisis. There are not enough goalies in a 32-team league to handle, especially the surge of offense that has come into this league. You can look at it, 904 this year. It was 904 last year. If you go back to just 2019-20, It was 9-10. Like that's a meaningful dip in just the last 5 years. So already in crisis. That's why the Red Wings were carrying 3 goalies. They knew that they got burned by depth last year. They overworked Husso. It was all a problem. And that's a long way of saying here they are. And that depth is the only thing that stands between them and having to have Michael Hutchinson be their number 1 goalie for at least the next little bit. Husso's going to be week to week for a while was the terminology by Derek Lalonde. We'll see what that means. Doesn't sound encouraging. Little more positive on Alex Lyon. He's out through Christmas, which is really only a handful of games here. Three more games here they got to get through. Not a lock. He's back after that, but it sounded honestly pretty encouraging that he will be. So I think they'll be at Lyon Reimer by that point. So what you're really looking at with Michael Hutchinson is probably 1 start. And I think he can give you 1 start strategically placed. Obviously, this upcoming schedule is not especially forgiving.
This weekend.
So, yes, exactly.
We play 3 games in 4 days. We have a back-to-back, right? Like,
So you're probably looking for 1 from him. You're probably going to go with Reimer tomorrow in Winnipeg. And I'd expect that you're going to see Reimer on Saturday. I think they're in New Jersey. And so it's just that 1 other game between that. Who is that? Is that Philly. Minnesota? Philly, yes, that's right. Yeah, so Philly. So you're probably going to look at maybe Philly is his game. And, he's not been a career like starter, but he has some history. He was playing 30 games or so with the Jets in the mid 2010s and giving you decent enough save percentages. He's had kind of more recently spot duty. It's 1 game. You got to give him a lot of help in front of you. You're down to your number 4 goalie. That's just what it is. It's, but I think you have to respect the career that he's had to think he can give you 1 game when you really, really need it. And right now you really, really need it.
Well, I kind of want to, unless Brian, you have anything else about like the goalie situation in a vacuum, I kind of want to go big picture, but stay in net. Like the rest of the season, we brought up and you just brought up, obviously, the huge dip in save percentage around the league. And that's something Brian and I have talked about a lot. I mean, even like, I want to say 2.5 weeks ago was under 900. So like that's 904 and it's gone up dramatically lately. Like it's been just plummeting this year. And so for a team like the Wings, who the fan base and like obviously writers, media people, whatever, everybody is kind of looking at the goaltending situation going like somebody is going to have to like step up here. And obviously Lyon was really good in limited time before the injury. Like how, I guess what I'm trying to ask in a weird way is like, is the rest of the league struggling in net almost a weirdly good thing for the Wings, who are also struggling in net just because of like supply and demand? Like, is that flawed logic? Is that like somewhat reasonable? Like, I'm just trying to figure out the rest of the way, I guess, the general confidence you have in net for the Wings.
Yeah, I think that is the way you have to look at it. You look at all these things by, relative to the rest of the league, right? Like, the Red Wings, all these guys, it's for the same reason that you can look at, the average skater today and say that they're more skilled than the average skater 10 years ago. Okay, but every team has those guys. So just because your roster might have more skill, it doesn't mean that you're a more skilled team relative to the rest of the league than you once were. And I don't think they are really. I mean, maybe more than the last couple of years. But the same applies in goal. And so the good news is if you're a team that's like, well, I don't know if we can realistically think we're going to get 9-10 goaltending. The good news is most of the teams aren't going to get 9-10 goaltending. You could probably count on 2 hands the teams that you really expect to get 9-10 goaltending over the course of a season. And they're the teams with the studs, with the Hellebucks, with the Vasilevskis, with the Saroses, Sorokin, Shesterkin, Ottinger. How many more even are there than the ones I just rattled off? Vasilevsky, did I say? I don't know. So
all those Eastern Conference and Atlantic Division teams.
Yeah, go figure, right?
Some of those names, like, I mean, even some of those names are having, like, Ottinger got off to a rough start too. Like, even some of those names are like not even up to par. Yeah.
Right. So it gives you, but what I think that the temptation there might be to say, well, you're just going to have to play a bunch of shootouts. I think what it actually means is you're going to have to really take care of your own end and put your goalies in the best possible position to succeed. You can't go into any game thinking going to score 6 goals because we think we're going to give up 5. You can't do that. You got to go in trying to make life as easy as possible for your goalies and trust that if you are, the more dynamic offensive team that you think you are and you're more skilled in past years, that will show up in the moments you need it to show up.
Case point, Edmonton Oilers. Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic. Buffalo Sabres last year. Anyway,
right.
Yeah, true.
Great points.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to continue the conversation. I feel like I have one more Michael Hutchinson question. If not, we can go into the defense because you kind of transitioned nicely into talking about the defense and insulating those goaltenders. So we'll cover that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Stay tuned for that. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Patrick Kane, he's got 4 points in 6 games. He's on pace for a nice little season with about 60 that he can play max. And the Red Wings, despite the fact that they're on a little bit of a lull, they can still make the playoffs. And if you get out the right time, that Stanley Cup could be yours. And you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app for the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is the number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like McKinnon, Makar, Hughes will record more or less. That's my favorite joke, Max. I'm sorry. In Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in any given game. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Red Wings fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So you start paying attention and nail your picks, and you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. You know, Max, you brought up the insulation that you're going to have to do with the goaltending in Detroit. And that is something that Scotty and I have talked about a lot. This Red Wings team, they get into those shootouts. At one point when they were playing hot, I did equate them to last year's Buffalo Sabres. They'd score a lot, they'd give up a ton of goals, and they would just have to hang on to survive. Yeah. And the more I watch this team, the more I come to the conclusion personally, and whether or not you agree is everyone's own opinion, but this team does not possess the puck at all. They kind of stink at 5-on-5. When you're looking at defense and how to improve this defense, for me, it's puck possession. But for you, what is the one thing that this team really has to do to help insulate the goalies and just play better team defense?
Yeah, I mean, that question is always so chicken or the egg for me, right? Because I think every person around hockey, you know this very well, everyone wants the puck. So is the question of how do you possess the puck more, that you just hold on to it? Well, that means you're not shooting. That means you're what? Like you're just going to stick handle in a phone booth around everybody? Like that's easier said than done. To me, the answer to how do teams up their puck possession is they go get the puck back when they don't have it. They kill plays in transition. They do not let plays drag out. When you get the puck in your defensive zone, you are able to break the puck out cleanly. And these are the things that I think the Red Wings have struggled with, especially that last one. I don't know if I have a stat for this, so maybe I'm wrong, but I felt like, especially the first 20 to 25 games of this season, I thought the Red Wings transition defense was really good. And I think Jake Wallman especially was a horse in that regard. And I know that that pair of him and Seider of late has not been quite as impressive very recently, but I think on the whole, they're still 2 really, really good players. That's one of their strengths, both of them. It's the reason that the Sherratt Petrie thing, I know fans have a lot of opinions there. I was shocked to see, and I think this is a good gut check, that their defensive goals, expected goals against, and even real goals against numbers are really impressive league wide. Right?
I hate it.
Why is this? Because they're good at killing plays, right? They're good defenders. This is what they do. And I know that it doesn't always translate in the offensive end, but so be it. So I think that's an okay, that they generally grade out okay there. I couldn't tell you if there's something that's changed there, but I think it's just been given up odd mans in the recent stretch. And Carolina and Philly, they did a decent job of containing it, but by and large, where I've seen them really struggle, I feel like, is just getting the puck out. And it's been the defense goes to the boards, and the boards, whether they turn it over or whether they can't get to it or whether they got to throw it back down low, it just seems like it takes them longer to get out of their own zone than most of the teams that I'm watching them play against on most nights. It's not the case every night. This is the part of the show where I say they have a player whose whole thing is he is a tremendous puck transitioner and breakout artist in Grand Rapids, and that's Simon Edvinsson. And I have no idea why he's not a Detroit Red Wing right now, but he's not. And I think that, that is the number one area that I see that I think is holding them back defensively is being able to get the puck out of their zone and end those sustained offensive possessions for their opponents quicker.
Max, I feel like we could do like 35 minutes alone on the defense, Sherratt and the Petrie thing, because that is something that Scotty and I have noticed recently. Like, we obviously we were pretty critical of the season Sherratt had last year.
Yep.
Coming into the season, we were like, Petrie and Sherratt together, like, what is going on? And then, as you pointed out there, they've been doing really well of late, and I cannot figure them out as a pair as to why they've seen so much success, and Wallman and Seider have struggled. And I think part of it might be deployment. But
a lot of it, I think, is. I mean, I think Wallman and Seider have gotten really tough minutes, but I also just think you're looking at the older you get in the NHL, the more you know how to defend NHL players. And Wallman's not young, but he's still really in his third full NHL season, maybe even you could really almost say second.
He was really sheltered in St. Louis before coming here,
and he just didn't get that much opportunity there, right? So they're both young players, I think, in terms of games, and I think Sherratt and Petrie, obviously the opposite end of that spectrum, they're extremely seasoned. They know how to defend. They're also big physical guys. That's also true of Seider and Wallman. But I think you just put those two together, and some of it's deployment, some of it's they kind of have this savvy know how to kill plays. I still am taking the Seider-Wallman pair ahead, of course. That's the reason that they're getting the tougher matchups. But I think it's the reason I say I'm surprised to see the stat is because of you hear this discourse around it, but they've actually been excellent at their role, which is keep the puck out of your net. You're not counting on those two guys to get your offense, although Petrie did score the other night. You're counting on them to handle their minutes and keep the puck out of the net when they're out there, and they're doing that. So, anyway, that's a long tangent, but yes, sorry, you were saying.
Like I said, we could go 40 minutes.
Yes.
Scotty, you had one?
No, yeah, well, obviously, something that Brian and I have talked about a lot is not only like defense from the blue line perspective, but defensive forward play, and how it feels like pretty consistently you can correlate like a really successful and aggressive forecheck by the forwards to like the good defensive periods that this team has. But also, they can't do it for 3 full periods, and they've proven that like time and time and time again. So I guess, like, obviously you bring in Kane, not going to help you too much on the defensive side of the puck, obviously, but he actually had a couple of nice plays defensively in the last game. But like, I just from we broke down the blue line, but just talk about, from a team defensive like schematic, I guess, perspective. How do you help your goalie out more from like a whole unit rather than just the blue line? And B, is there any way, shape, and form that this team can actually play like consistent 3 full periods of good defensive hockey ever? Because it's very frustrating.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think it starts in the recent skid. I think you cannot emphasize enough that the Red Wings have been without their 2 top centers.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I think of the center position, one of the biggest things I think about is the defensive responsibility that it carries. So you subtract 2 guys like Larkin, and especially J2 Compher, who is their best defensive forward. And no surprise that the defense is going to look good. That being said, the team defense hadn't looked good for a few games before that either. They had gotten out to these big 4-goal leads, and they were letting teams walk back into it. And that, I think, speaks to Scotty's point about 60 complete minutes, which is there some part of me that thinks that the complete 60-minute effort is a total myth? Because every time you're trailing in a game, you somehow find your way to that 10-minute sustained pressure stretch. And whether you score or you don't usually decides that game. But like, everyone will always talk about, you're sitting back in the third period, and there's truth to it. I think it's human nature that when you have Brian, I know you play hockey, like you have a 3-goal lead, you're not going to be chasing that hard in the third period, because you know that if you over pursue something, it's this huge mistake and you gave up an odd man rush, and that might cost you the game.
There were moments on Sunday when we were playing together, I was actively avoiding the puck. But continue.
Yeah, you're staying high, right? Like, and that's, I don't think that's even wrong. But like, is also this fine balance to be struck where you can't let that mean you're getting lazy, you're easing off, you're scared, anything like that. Like, you have to still find a way to play. It's why it's a hard game. So honestly, there's a part of me that feels that the 60-minute effort is actually kind of a myth. Like, because the team that's losing in the third period is always going to make a push. And it's just whether or not you can stop it, right? And sometimes that's not even totally within your control. So what will it take? I think it's going to take them really just kind of locking in on it. And I think everyone got really excited. They're a top 5 offensive team in the league right now. Like, that's something that, when was the last time you could say that about the Red Wings? And that was exciting. But I think what it is going to take, Lalone made this comment the other day that he was like, we don't have any Selke winners on the roster. And it's kind of funny because I feel like we've had so many conversations on this beat in the last 5 years about how the Red Wings only emphasize these two-way players. And now the coach is sitting there saying, like, there's no, Selke candidates on this roster. Right. And he's, in a way, he's kind of right. They've gotten a little bit of, kind of this, they address their problem of not scoring enough. And now you wonder, do they have enough defensive forwards? And it's an issue, but I think it just comes into locking in on the details. Lalone made this point today to talk about players kind of looping back and not stopping on pucks. And that, I think, is an area that you'll see them emphasize into the Christmas break here is do not take those wide turns and circle back lazy. You stop on the puck and you skate back. And that goes back to minor hockey basically, but it's always true, right? You take these inefficient routes back to the play and it's going to cost you time and it's probably going to cost you on the scoreboard.
Awesome. We're going to take another short break. And when we return, Scotty brought up Patrick Kane. I wanted, of course, ask Max what your first impressions on him. We're 6 games into his tenure as a Red Wing, as well as talk about your biggest surprises and biggest disappointments individually with these Detroit Red Wings. So stay tuned to segment 3. Got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 rather, if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get into the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. We're joined by Max Bultman, Detroit Red Wings beat writer of The Athletic. And Max, Scotty had brought up Patrick Kane in segment 2, just kind of talking about the overall offense in general. But I wanted to know what your thoughts on Patrick Kane have been now 6 games into his tenure, 1 goal, 3 assists, coming off a multi-assist game in the loss to the Ducks. That's it. How you think? How you feel on him?
I've been impressed. You didn't know what to expect coming off the hip resurfacing surgery. Yes, I think as we alluded in the last section, he's not a Selke winner. He's not going to be a real positive defensive impact guy by and large, but he's such a smart player. You've seen him have some takeaways that lead to scoring chances. I think he's looked dangerous basically from his first game. He could have had a multi-point game that night,
dude.
And yeah, I just think I think as this continues to go on, as he gets more comfortable with his teammates, and crucially, as his teammates get more comfortable around him, I think he's going to turn into a real net positive. I put this in my story for today, though. I don't know about you guys. I feel like people have tried to draw this parallel that they're 1-6 since Kane joined the lineup, and I get that that's literally true. I think the injuries have a whole lot more to do with it. But I will say, if there's been anything that's taken a little bit of time as he's joined, I really think it's that his teammates have seemed like they need to try to feed him the puck at all times. Every time they're out there with him, it's throwing him the puck, right? Yeah.
And receiving passes. Like, he makes such creative passes that people are like, oh, I don't know that I'm getting the puck passed to me right now when they turn the puck over. That's like happened 3 or 4 times already since he's joined. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like even on the power play, he'll get the puck, and he's not the hardest shooter, so I don't think like he needs to be the guy that you're feeding for shots. But it kind of seems like the puck gets to him, and then everyone just stands still and freezes. Like, what's he going to do with it? And that's not going to really work. I think I've actually asked Kane this question about, like, in the past, does it happen that guys kind of defer to you, that whatever, and how long does that kind of take? And he said, he's actually someone who he kind of likes to see how his teammates play, his line mates play, and kind of work in around that and see how he can kind of make them better off of that. I just think that's a tricky thing. It's human nature that a guy like Patrick Kane, who is the greatest American-born hockey player of all time, joins your team, and you're like, oh, well, that's who I need to give the puck to, and I just need to, let them cook. And I think realistically, the kind of player Patrick Kane is, he kind of wants to mold his game around what you do well, because he can do a little bit of everything to help whoever. And I think that is going to take a little time. But I am a little surprised at some of the instances of it. Like, I think you just want to see that adjustment. I think it's coming. I think the multi-point game the other night's a good sign. I think he's really good though, and I actually think it will not shock me if he does become a point per game forward here in the fairly near future.
Well, and that's just it, right? Like, he historically has been such a good hockey player. I mean, he still is, but there's just this, and I'm getting off into a little bit of a tangent here, but there's been like this narrative, like you were saying online, where people are like cherry picking his expected goals for percentage and whatnot to try and say like Patrick Kane's actively making the Red Wings worse. And it's like, not if you watch the games. Every single shift he's out there, he's so dangerous. But you're spot on that, like, and even as a Red Wings fan myself, like, I find myself going, okay, now give the puck to Kane in the offensive zone. I wouldn't mind seeing him shoot the puck a little bit more, because there are times where I think he passes up on good shooting opportunities to make a pass. But that's true for many Red Wings, like Joe Veleno and Lucas Raymond. I've noticed do the same thing. But there's so much that's it, right? Like, the chemistry is to come, and you drop Patrick Kane in this roster, and then 2 games later, 1 game later, you lose half your forwards.
Right.
So there is just this huge, and I think that is such a huge part of why they are struggling right now, is because of the fact that they were so banged up for so long that now they're struggling to find that chemistry as guys get healthy again, on top of trying to build that chemistry with a brand new player who's, like you said, the greatest American hockey player of all time.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is you talked about kind of the cherry picking stats. It's funny because they're actually, I think, cherry picking around the expected goals for percentage, because like the Corsi's bad and the actual goals for percentage is bad. His expected goals for percentage is almost 52%. It's the 4th best on the team. And his expected goals against, for even when I say he's not going to be a Selke winner, it is the 2nd best among all Red Wings forwards. It's 2.23 per 60, which is a great number, right? So it's that they're kind of cherry picking around that and just going to Corsi or goals for, which is, pretty similar to plus minus. And I'm not saying those stats don't matter, but I do think people are cherry picking this mainly just based on the fact that they're losing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they certainly are losing. So.
They are losing. I get it.
Fair enough.
It's not fun for anybody to watch the losses, but I do. Yeah,
I do. Your Pistons beat writer friends and talk about writing about a team that's losing a little bit.
I've done it too.
Yeah,
not quite to that degree.
Not fun for anybody there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm ready to talk like big picture, like just postseason check-in, like expectations, or maybe we shouldn't say postseason, just season expectations now. I know, like, going into the season, a lot of people, we had you on at one point, kind of got like a gauge for where we were at and where you were at. And I know Brian and I were kind of on like if they're one of the best teams in the league to miss the playoffs, that's like probably a good step in the right direction kind of a thing. And then they got off to obviously the really good start, then bad start, then really good stretch. Now it's bad again. Like, with this roller coaster of a season, kind of like, where are you right now as we head into, as Brian says, American Christmas?
Yeah.
Nice callback.
Canadian Christmas was last week.
That's a deep cut, Max.
That's good. Yeah, no, I think it's funny because I was kind of I feel like the last one to really say like, okay, I believe that they have a real chance at the playoffs, and they've started losing now. And funny enough, I'm kind of not ready to move off of that. If the season ends today, they're not in a spot, but like, you can look at the teams that are ahead of them right now. And yeah, I guess you could say, like, especially like the Islanders, they have something the Red Wings don't, which is a great goalie like Ilya Sorokin to kind of fall back on. But I'm honestly not sure that the Capitals are a better team than them. I'm not sure that the Hurricanes at this point are even a better team than them. I don't really think the Flyers are a better team than them. I think they're getting the John Tortorella bump and playing really good hockey under a really great coach. But I do believe that over time, the Red Wings are the more talented team and can pass these guys for these wild card spots. I don't think they're going to get an Atlantic, top 3 in the Atlantic playoff spot, but I still think they can make the playoffs as a wild card. And I'm going to need to see them slump with Dylan Larkin and with JT Compher before I'm ready to say that I think that they're putting themselves in too bad of a spot. They sacrificed the entire cushion. There's no doubt about that. They had built up this buffer, and Larkin's injury and Compher's injury and Perron's suspension wiped it out. But I still think they can make this. I think they're a deep team. They're a talented team. And I think, I was in a much more negative outlook on this team coming out of Stockholm than I am right now. And when they came out of Stockholm, they won 6 out of 7. Now they've lost 6 out of 7, but I don't think it's curtains yet.
Well, and that's exactly it with this Red Wings team is if the one thing that they're consistent at is being inconsistent. They're going to go on stretches where they win 5 games, and they're going to go on a stretch where they lose 3, win 1, lose 3 more, and then I'm sure in a week or two they'll have won 4 games in a row, and we'll just be like back in it. This is just how this team operates right now, and hopefully they can figure out underneath Derek alone. But I want to ask too. I mean, this was an offseason, Max, where the Red Wings acquired 12 new players through trades or free agency, maybe more now that Patrick Kane's been acquired. Out of all those guys, 30 games into the season, who is the biggest player to stand out to you positively and negatively?
Positive. It's close between Compher and Gostisbehere. I didn't know what to make of Gostisbehere. I don't typically honestly love that player type, the small offensive defenseman, but he's really been outstanding. And I have to recognize that he's made a huge positive impact on this team. But I'm going to go with Compher just because I think their dire need at the 2C spot for so long has been so glaring and so limiting. And he has really righted a lot of that. And I think he's the biggest reason that you're able to make the dynamic work where you're going to have kind of 3, and Raymond, I think, has really rounded out his game. But even, with DeBrincat, Kane, Raymond, none of those are real power game guys, although Raymond's won a lot of battles this year, and maybe he's trending toward becoming that. Really impressive. But having Compher there and it allows you to work with all those small, smart, skilled offensive wingers and make it all work. And so I would go with Compher. What about in the negative direction? Who's the one who has been standing out to you the most as underperforming? All right, so let me just run through this list in my head here. So the full list of signings, there was, DeBrincat's been good too, but I still would go Compher over him. I don't think Justin Hall's been bad. I just think, even the other night, you saw Radko Gudas, and how much more did Radko Gudas get than Justin Hall? I think I wanted Gudas too. I thought that was the move as well. I haven't been enamored with Klim Kostin's game yet either. Maybe not the right timing to talk about it. He just went to IR. It didn't look like a pleasant injury. I just haven't, he's brought a little physicality, but I think the way that he was discussed, you wanted to see a little more to his game. So I haven't been blown away there. I think Sprong's been good. Reimer just okay, but obviously right now, if they didn't have him, they'd be in a really bad place. So probably can't say that. I guess maybe Kostin. Yeah, interesting. I actually quite like Kostin's game personally. I like the heaviness in his game. Yeah. I just haven't felt like he's really made an impact with it. That's correct. Yeah. I've honestly, an underrated one. I've been really liking Christian Fischer. I really like Christian Fischer.
Dog. Yeah, I love him, man.
It's funny. He only gets 8 minutes of even strength time, but he's always positive and expected goals for and Corsi. He's every single time he's out there. I said at one point, with Sprong on that wing too. The Red Wings have one of the better fourth lines in the NHL. It's crazy. Scotty, got anything else, buddy?
I don't think so. Better defenseman, Brian Fisher or Ben Sherratt last season?
I still got to go with Sherratt. Did I ever tell you the DeKaiser drop-in story?
No.
I don't think so.
My first year on the beat, I went to this drop-in skate with a guy I knew. It was my first time skating in 5 years. And the guy told me, come here and play. And I was like, okay, great. And so I walk into the room, and the first people I see are Justin Applicator and Danny DeKaiser. And I go, I should not be here. So I go to the other locker room and I get ready and I go out on the ice, and it's very embarrassing. I was on the white team. The only jersey I had, the same one I wore on Sunday, Brian, is a USA jersey. Mm-hmm. So I'm wearing this USA jersey against 2 guys who I believe have both worn this actual Team USA jersey in real competition.
Nice.
And I'm going out there, and obviously these guys are going 30%, and they're just by far the best guys on the ice. At one point I had a 2-on-1 rush with someone against the Kaiser, and I try to saucer a pass over, and he just swats it out of the air and goes the other way. That was a real good indication to me that the NHL player that you're the most frustrated with at any given moment would cook you 6 ways to Sunday. period.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And sometimes I say that to myself on the air as like a reality check. And I'm like, whenever I'm like, I feel like I'm bagging too hard on any individual player. I'm like, this player's still like 20
They're
times better than
all
I
elite.
am.
They're all elite. And that's the craziest thing about it is it's just like to be even like a bottom 5 percentile player in the NHL, you are so elite at your job, which is just, it's the hardest thing to reconcile because it seems like, I know there must be better than this, but it's just, that's what the bar is, man. It's crazy.
I do have one more question, and I did intend to send us off here, but you mentioned a name earlier in the podcast that I can't let you walk away without talking about, and that's Simon Edvinsson.
Yeah.
You know, going into the season, seeing all the acquisitions the Red Wings were making, you know, I know they didn't really know how healthy he was going to be coming out of training camp. It turned out he was 100% healthy, and he's been tearing it up in Grand Rapids. Yzerman's gone on the record and basically said, like, if a player's ready for the NHL, they'll play. And there's a big belief that players wouldn't get blocked, but it's starting to feel like Edvinsson might be blocked from the NHL roster.
There's just no question. I mean, like, they can say what they want. I think that they're nervous to lose someone on waivers. And I think right now with the goalies, maybe you see why, but it's not just you. It's not just me. I've talked to other people around the sport who are stunned that like when are they going to call him up? He looks, when I've watched him just on video, like you see these flashes of dominance and then it just looks too easy for him, and they can say what they want. I think you're right, Scotty, Brian, sorry, in saying that they probably didn't plan for him to be healthy, and they probably didn't plan for their blue line to be this healthy. That's the only thing I can think of because he is ready. Everyone sees it, and I don't know what more it's going to take. Honestly, my concern at this point, watching it, is like he's been so good for so long. How do you keep that level and not get the promotion and maintain that? I know there's like must be some intrinsic motivational thing, but it's like, you're a baseball guy, Scotty. Like, they always talk about they want to call these guys up when they're on a hot streak. You want to call the guy up when he's on a 12-game streak where he has like 2 hits per game for 2 weeks, and you're like, okay, get him up now. His confidence is high. Let's go. You don't want to let that run its course and then have to be like, well, we didn't call him up then. Now he's like on a cold streak. Can we call him up now? Right? Like, I get they got roster issues, and that's the only thing I can think of. But
that's
he's been really good.
Self-inflicted, right? Like,
Totally.
When they traded for Jeff Petrie, and again, Jeff Petrie's having a pretty nice season of late. You know, in the last 10, 15 games, he and Sherrod have really figured it out, it seems. But when they traded for Petrie, I'm like, why? Like, you already had 6 defensemen, and now you're scratching Justin Holl, who you signed to a 3-year, $3 million contract.
Yeah.
and you just extended Oli Mata, and I agree. I mean, it's almost, you know, I think Justin Holl's a good player. That's why I didn't say him for the guy who's been the worst. It's just he does qualify as one of the most, like, really, like, you went out and did that, and then you went and got Petrie, and maybe Petrie wasn't have been available, I guess, before the trade, that the Carlson trade.
And plus he was super cheap.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Because of that, because there was the retained salary, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's blocked. I don't have any other answer to put it, Brian. Like, you're just dead right. They said that they weren't going to do this, and they're doing it, and there's just no other way to view it.
Cool. Awesome way to end the episode. I shouldn't ask the question. Now I'm sad. Scotty.
It won't be forever. I mean, the thing is that nobody wants to, like, watch a game and say, I hope someone gets injured so Simon Edvinsson could come up. That's not how anyone's going to look at this. Right. But it is an inevitability. Someone's going to get hurt. He's going to get his chance, and I think he's going to run with it whenever it happens.
I think that's something we're seeing with the goalie situation and with the forwards too, right? I mean, that's, you know, like, totally. Zarnik and obviously Berger's going back and forth and whatnot. Like, I think, I don't know, if you would have asked me if you know, the blue line would have, if you would have set the over-under for blue line injuries at 0.5 going into the year by Christmas, I would have taken the over. So, like, I got like it's just weird that no one, like, I think it's great. Good job, guys.
Absolutely.
But, like, no one has even missed a game with injury. Like, it's, I don't know. Like, I think that's they were probably planning on utilizing the depth a little bit more than they've had to so far, for sure.
As we speak, the monkey's paw is curling. So.
Yeah, exactly. Now that we've
Right.
said this, they're going to have 2 major
100%.
defense
Now
injuries.
3
in the next
guys are
week.
going to go down, and you're going to be have a very thin
Yeah,
blue
and
line.
it's going to be Brogan Rafferty up on the blue line.
Bring Brian Fisher out there.
Yeah, let's do it. Sign me to a 2-way contract. I'd love the.
He's got an elite prospects page. I don't know if people are aware of that. I never
do.
bring it up.
I will be visiting that page as soon as I sign off.
You
here.
should. It's awesome. Yeah.
Maybe
It's
screenshotting it.
incredible.
Who knows?
The stats are totally accurate. Anyways, Max, thank
tired.
you so much for taking the time to join us. It was a hoot and a holler, as the kids say, as always. I'm pretty sure the kids say that.
They will now.
We will look forward to having you on later in the season, maybe around trade deadline season. It'll be pretty exciting. And I look forward to seeing you at my 11:15 hockey game tonight.
I'll let you know. I'm going to dinner right now. We'll see how I'm feeling
okay.
as it gets to.
All right. Scotty, final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.